go to Psalm chapter 2, verse 7. We'll start at verse 6. Yet have I set my king on my holy hill of Zion. I will declare the decree. The Lord has said to me, you are my son, today I have begotten you. Now notice it talks about God the Father setting his king upon his holy hill of Zion. And then he says, you are my son, today I have begotten you. In English culture, when we create a new king, a new head of state, a king or a queen, we authenticate that by a coronation where the king is crowned. So when Queen Elizabeth II dies and Prince Charles takes the throne of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, Prince Charles will have a coronation. Now, that's when the crown is placed on his head. Now, the Jews didn't have a word for coronation. They just didn't use that term at all. Instead, they used the term begotten. They believed that when a king was made a king, it was a begetting. It was like he was born another time. So the phrase, you are my son, today I have begotten you, in Psalm 2:7, refer back to the previous verse, yet have I set my king on my holy hill of Zion. To a Jew would understand the begetting, you are my son, today I have begotten you, as the son taking up his role as king. Now, this verse is quoted 3 times in the New Testament. Each time it's applicable to the resurrection. In Acts 13:33, God has fulfilled this for us, their children, in that he has raised up Jesus, as it is also written in the 2nd Psalm, you are my son, today I have begotten you. And verse 34, in that he raised him from the dead. So the context is clearly the resurrection. And as proof that Christ is raised up, we find Psalm 2:7 quoted, you are my son, today I have begotten you, proving that this messianic psalm is applicable to Christ's resurrection. We then go to Hebrews chapter 1, verse 5. I better mention briefly, Hebrews chapter 1 focuses upon the deity of Christ. The Son is the creator. In Hebrews 1:2, he shares his Father's nature. Hebrews 1:3, the Son is better than the angels. Hebrews 1:4. Hebrews 1:8, the Son is called God by the Father. Your throne, O God. So the Father speaks to the Son and calls him God. The Son is addressed as Yahweh in Hebrews chapter 1, verse 10. And the Son is again the creator in Hebrews 1:10 to 12. In Hebrews 1:5, for to which of the angels did he ever say, you are my son, today I have begotten you? Again, this is the Messianic Psalm, Psalm 2:7, applied in the context of Christ's resurrection, because it says in the previous verse, having become so much better than the angels. Well, how did Christ become better than the angels? Through his resurrection, which is mentioned in the verse before that, in Hebrews chapter 1, verse 3, where it talks about he has by himself purged our sins, that's the work on the cross, sat down at the right hand of the Majesty on high. When did Christ sit down at the right hand of the Majesty on high? Which is not, by the way, a literal right hand. God is a spirit. He doesn't have a physical right hand and a physical right hand side. Right hand was your sword arm that you fought your battles with your sword. So right side, or the right hand of power, refers to the authority, the power that God has. And Christ sat down on the right hand of power at his resurrection. So Hebrews 1:5, you are my son, today I have begotten you, is quoted in the context of Christ's resurrection. And in the Jewish culture, when the king became a king, it was called his begetting. And that's the context here for Hebrews 1:5. Oneness Pentecostals will try to imply that the Son is not God, he's created. The Son came into existence at Bethlehem, and this is why they would say Psalm 2:7 is quoted here in Hebrews chapter 1, verse 5. But you don't find any reference to Bethlehem anywhere in Hebrews chapter 1. As I said, the context, if you look at verse 4, he's better than the angels. How is he better than the angels? By nature of his resurrection and his divine ontological relationship with the Father, that he shares the Father's very nature. The other verse where Psalm 2:7 is quoted is Hebrews 5:5, So Christ also did not glorify himself to become high priest, but it was he who said to him, "You are my son, today I have begotten you." As he also says in another place, "You are a priest forever, according to the order of Melchizedek." Well, how could Christ operate as high priest when all the priests had to be of the tribe of Levi, and Christ was born of the wrong tribe? He was born of the tribe of Judah. So Christ could not operate as high priest. He could not fill the office of priest or high priest because he was of the wrong tribe. Unless, of course, God has a way around that, namely, God made Christ a priest on the cross. And having made Christ a priest on the cross, at his resurrection from the dead, that is when Christ was then made king. So that's a simple explanation of Psalm 2:7, which I hope is helpful. Remember, though, that we have different words. We have geneo, begotten, which is a verb, and it can be used in the sense of a normal birth or a normal begetting, where a woman gives birth to a son. We find that at Matthew, I've got in my notes Matthew 1:4, but I think it's Matthew 2:4. Let's just go there quickly. And when he had gathered all the chief priests and scribes of the people together, he inquired of them where Christ was to be born. Born is geneo. So there's an instance of geneo being used in its other usage, because words can be used in different ways in different contexts. So geneo can refer to Christ's birth in passages such as Matthew 2:4. But as I said, when geneo is used in the context of Psalm 2:7, "You are my son, today I have begotten you," it's used in the context of the resurrection. Now there's another word, monogenes, comes from two Greek words. Mono, which means one. Think of a stereo, and also think of a mono. Mono would be one speaker, stereo is two speakers. I'm old enough to remember mono record players. Used to have one when I was a very young child until it broke.